In the 13 years that I have been producing and presenting radio, I have told the stories of thousands of people. So much so, I started to think of myself as the British version of Oprah. But then, one day, something happened. It was out of the blue. It was quite unexpected, and I was woefully unprepared. You see, someone asked me to tell them my story. And frankly, I was stumped. Not because I didn't know who I was. I mean, I understood my character perfectly. I've been cultivating her for a while. My character development had started at grammar school, where, coming from a working class background and a Caribbean family, I had to travel across the city in order to attend my middle upper class school. My character had convinced my teachers that I was bilingual because I spoke patois. And I was introduced to cultural trips in Italy and France, when, despite that, I would sometimes spend my summers on coach trips to Skegness, eating jerk chicken out of a Tupperware tub. And it wasn't because I didn't understand the plot. I mean, having been exposed to a different life through my education and my father's determination to introduce me to culture by traipsing me across Europe as he wanted to take my mind out of Blackpool, I had come to understand that my aspiration was to become a professional, a doctor, a lawyer, maybe even a businesswoman. It was all about striving for a better life than my parents had had themselves, the children of migrants from the Caribbean. Now, it wasn't quite a rags to riches story, but it was certainly a working class to middle class aspiration. And I wasn't ashamed of the outcome either. I mean, after 20 years of self-employment, I had finally achieved a level of stability, gotten to a space where I had some financial knowledge, and was finally walking the talk that I had been selling to my consultancy clients for years. I'd even given my parents a sense of pride, which stopped them from saying things like, "Boy, me don't know what she do." Loosely translated to, "I don't know what she's doing." Over the years, I had transformed into what I like to call a Pebble person. Shiny, smooth, and resilient. It was my outward persona as well. You see, I'd found peace and freedom, and that had helped me to transform my life. So feel free to bounce me up against a wall and watch me bounce back, completely undamaged, with only the click of my heels as any sign that I've actually been hit. My Pebble people story is great. It features healthy eating, Zen-like days. I even hear the birds singing in the morning. After all, who's interested in hearing about the failures? No one wants to know why I dropped out of university the first time and became the youngest mature student in history. Why would anyone be interested in knowing that in order to leave an 8-year relationship, I had to walk away from my successful consultancy business because I'd built it with my then fiancé? Who would care that it was only the contents of my BMW that I had to start again? And what value would you really get from knowing that after I set up another successful training and consultancy business, the 2011 riots brought me to the brink of bankruptcy? Surely, no one needs to know that it took me nearly 5 years to recover emotionally and financially from those successive failures. No. See, I didn't want to tell that story. The story that had shaped me, really, taught me the lessons about myself professionally and personally, some wanted and some not, that were hard, that were deep, and that were painful, that exposed me as a putty person, all misshapen and changed after being smashed against those walls. I wanted to tell my shiny story. Plus, none of it was on social media. So I could tell my shiny story without fear that there was going to be some misplaced, ill-considered, overly emotional tweet that could damage all of my narrative. So I did. And nobody cared. Truth is, and I know this as a professional storyteller, that no one really cares about shiny Pebble people. We've seen loads of them over the years, in adverts, in businesses, on TV, and frankly, we're not bothered anymore. Because they're usually a bit dull, they can be quite smug, and they're often quite inauthentic. We smell their BS because we know that underneath all of that shine in the pebble, there's some kind of putty. And as we grow and achieve and seek to give our gifts to the world, we all at some point have been or still are putty. And so we want to know the story of how the putty became the pebble, how the butterfly emerged from its chrysalis. And in today's world of social media, we even want to know what kind of caterpillar you were in the first place, and we will do our research to check. But that's because we do business with, we follow, and we employ putty people. They are the essence of interesting and powerful stories. You know, the ones that we're all hardwired for. Those ordinary, amazing, relatable, sad, funny, frustrating, and even happy stories. Because hidden within those stories, at least the effective ones, is the secret essence of creating connection. That sense of connection that fuels our guilty pleasures and creates buy-in. It's why we like to watch the emotional highs and lows of our favourite soap operas and their characters. Or we imagine ourselves as Susan Boyle, who can emerge on a stage with talent that no one ever knew we had, that will change our lives forever. It's why we pretend that the exaggerated reality of reality TV is absurd and lacks interest, when in fact the likes of Big Brother and The Real Housewives of wherever have been some of the biggest shows on our screens in recent years. You see, we all buy in. Stories can build careers, businesses, even fame. Stories become the backdrop of self-sustainability in an economic climate that is no longer characterized by stability. We pay for stories every day. But how do we make our stories pay? And what's next for creating a platform where your story is your currency? Because it's actually your way of explaining to the world what your value truly is. Well, first, we have to unlearn all the rules that we've been given on how to tell stories. Now, in a professional sense, our story tends to be told in a CV, your curriculum vitae. It translates to course of life. There's a list of your educational and academic achievements, of course, your occupational achievements also, as well as the skills that you've acquired over a period of time. But like a set of ingredients that you would get in a cake, it's really merely there to indicate what you should be, or at least what we want people to think we are. Modern day storytelling, however, now requires you to give people a taste of the cake. Rather than just listing the main ingredients, people want to understand who you are, not just what you do. And this means that we have to change the tools that we use to tell our stories. You'll soon find that CVs and resumes will become short videos that you use to your prospective employer or customer to inform them of who you are, rather than what you do. Now, my CV, that would tell you that I've helped my clients to generate millions. And I've either done that through helping them make money, save money, or do a combination of them both. But my video story, Now that would tell you that I've done it by being a pragmatic problem solver, by being a very straight talker, and by learning how to say no in about 27 different ways. But I do it with a smile and I have a pink pen. But in order to do that, that's when the hard part comes in. Because it's about connecting with yourself in order to find the essence of your story. And that means it's time to find your inner putty person. And frankly, that can be difficult. Because to tell your story authentically and to create a real connection, you have to reveal parts of yourself that previously weren't necessary. You see, your value becomes demonstrated in how you are shaped and in how you tell people about the things that have impacted you and have brought you to where you are and what continues to drive you forward. And the aim is to do that with as much openness, honesty, and truth as you can muster. As a journalist, I can tell you that the most interesting stories are not really based on the content. It's about the emotion that people bring to those stories that help them to feel interesting and relatable. As a businesswoman, I can tell you that people buy people, not things. But I know you already know that. So once you work out what your story is, then the important thing is that you keep telling it. Maintaining connections with your audience, whether it's potential business clients, partners, customers, even followers or friends, is about continuing your transformation with them and with their eyes so they can see what you're doing. Tools are available to each person in the form of their mobile phone, for example. And that means that every single one of us has the power to tell a story and to hold the attention of our marketplace and our tribe. We can hold them in the palm of our hands, and we can communicate with them directly and regularly. It gives you control over your narrative. And it gives you direct connections with the people who will ultimately buy your products, your services, and your skills. Getting into the habit of ongoing communication of your vibe with your tribe so that they can see how you continue to grow and transform is ultimately how you make your story pay. So please feel free to join me on my continuing story from putty to pebble, and I do hope that you'll let me join you on yours. Thank you.